Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome indeed to this afternoon's iOB business webinar. Now, on today's topic, we have something very, very interesting and very, very important when it comes to running your digital agency. Okay, so whether this is for you prospective digital agency owners, whether it's for a current digital agency owner, or whether it's for you veterans of the industry, this is going to be a valuable webinar for you. Okay, we're going to discuss tracking the success of your digital agency. We're going to talk about the specifics and see exactly what this means for you. Okay, so just whilst I'm giving it a minute or so for everybody to join us before we kick off with today's presentation, I'd like to just run you through a little bit about how these webinars work if this is your first time joining us. So what we usually do is a quick introduction just now with myself. My name is Ben Porter-Smith. If you haven't met me before, I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. And then we will jump into a presentation that will last around about 15 minutes or so, and you are more than welcome to ask any questions you might have about business in general, digital agencies, digital marketing, or indeed the presentation itself. So if you can pop those questions for me into the little Q&A box there at the bottom of your screen, it should be gray and it should say Q&A on it, and I will get those and then I can answer them for you at the Q&A session for the last 5 minutes or so of the webinar. So if you bear with me just for a moment, I'm going to get us set up on today's presentation. And what we'll do once we're set up is we'll switch off the camera and we will get started and we can run from there. Okay, so give me 1 minute. It's going to go ahead and switch off the video. So if you could please bear with me, and if you could just let me know if you can see the presentation on screen okay, and if you can hear me okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and very briefly check that we are good to go. Excellent. So it looks like we're all set. I'm just having a look at the chat box. I can see the people with us. We are good to go. All right, fantastic. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me. And we are going to get started with today's session. So tracking the success of your digital agency. Okay, that is what we're going to be discussing today. Now, your presenter is myself. My name is Ben Porter-Smith, and I'm a professional business coach. I specialize in working with small businesses and helping them achieve stability and growth. Okay, essentially my passion, my job, my day-to-day is helping small businesses. Okay, I work with them on their growth. I analyze stability patterns with them, and I help them develop into larger and bigger businesses. Okay, so what we're going to be discussing today in today's session, we're going to talk about quarterly reviews, first of all. Okay, now if you've said something you're unfamiliar with, not a term we've heard before, do not worry. Okay, I'm going to talk you through exactly what these are and exactly what they mean to you. Second thing we're going to talk about is monitoring the health of your client base. Okay, because we're talking about the success of your digital agency. Without clients, you will have no success. Okay, and finally, we're going to talk about setting objectives to compound on your success. Okay, so success is one thing. We all have that definition of what success means to each of us, and each of us will have a different viewpoint and opinion. Okay, but I want to show you how to compound on that success. I don't want you to stop at the first success. I want you to keep going time after time after time after time. Okay, so we're going to show you how to do that as well. Beginning with topic number 1, quarterly reviews. Okay, so let's talk about these. Essentially what they're a short and long-term health check for your business. Okay, so the reason that they're a short-term health check is because you're doing them every 3 months. So a business quarter, it lasts 3 months. Okay, and essentially most businesses will run on a calendar year. So we're doing January to March will be quarter 1, April to June will be quarter 2, July to September will be quarter 3, and October to December would be quarter 4. Okay, so some businesses operate that differently. It depends if they have a different fiscal year. But generally, let's just say for ease today that we're going to follow the calendar year, and a quarter would be once every 3 months starting from January. Okay, now they're a long-term health check because they're something that you're going to be doing every single quarter for every single year that you're in business. They're absolutely crucial, and I'm going to talk you through the reasons why. But if you don't do quarterly reviews yet, okay, now there might be a reason behind that, or potentially you're just looking to become a digital agency owner, but you haven't quite got there yet. Okay, whatever this is, log this information because it's going to be valuable to your business, okay, especially if it's not something you're doing at the moment. Now, a good quarterly review will last approximately 1 day, okay? Usually this is enough time to have a proper sit down and think. Now, my advice to you here, if you're going to conduct a quarterly review, make sure that you shut everything else off from the business, okay? You cannot be plugged into the business and fully focus on your quarterly review at the same time. You need all of your mental capacity, okay? You need full focus on this information. So shut off your emails, shut off your texts, shut off your calls, make sure that you're disconnected from anything you need to be disconnected by. And sometimes there's even businesses that I work with that choose to actually go away for a full day just to do this. They'll book a some sort of lodge somewhere, or an apartment, or whatever they need to just fully get away and focus on their business, to look at it from the outside, okay? Because on a day-to-day basis, we're very involved in the business, but to conduct an effective quarterly review, we actually need to step outside of the business and look at it from an objective viewpoint, okay? No opinions of, oh, well, I don't know if we could actually do that because it's going to be quite difficult, or I don't know if that's totally achievable. Can we be more realistic? Okay. The quarterly review is designed to give you a look as if you were an outsider to the business and say, what does this business need? We need an injection of life. Let's give it to the business. Okay. So a quarterly review will include the following. Okay. An assessment of financial earnings over the quarter. Okay. So we're going to have a look at, over the past 3 months, how much did the business earn? Okay. Now, we will have set ourselves objectives and targets, and we're going to talk about that throughout the rest of today's presentation. The most important thing for you to note right now is that in any good quarterly review, you will have a full assessment of financial earnings over the quarter. Okay. This means net profit. This means turnover. This means anything that the business earned, and not only what it earned, how it earned it. Okay. So if we did a particular advertising campaign that worked very, very well, and that resulted in X amount of turnover, then we're going to want to do that again. To do that again, we need to make sure that we have a note of it, we understand it, we realize why it happened. Okay. So the more analysis you do, you're figuring out things about your business, you're getting a deeper look, and you're saying, well, actually, we know that we had success, but we don't know why we had that success. So this is going to help us get a good look into that. Okay. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to do an analysis of wastage. Okay. Because in every single business, believe it or not, doesn't really matter whether you're tiny or whether you're a Goliath of the industry. Okay. There will be wastage in your business. Now, it can be that you're overpaying for something. It can be that you're spending money on something that doesn't need to be spent on. It can be that we're not using things anymore that we should be using. It could be that we're buying too much of, unnecessary things like stationery items, wastage, even products that we use as a business. Are we wasting them? Are we wasting pens? Are we just throwing pens away? Are we throwing folders away that we could use for something else? Okay. So let's just say, even from something tiny and seemingly insignificant, we're looking at maybe £100 worth of stationery. Okay. If you throw that out because you think that it's useless, then the next month you realize that you actually need it and we have to buy it all back again. That's £100 expense to the business that shouldn't really have happened. Okay. Now we can also compare the same to advertising campaigns. Are we still spending money on advertising campaigns that don't work? Okay. Because advertising is advertising. Some will work, some won't. So if these advertising campaigns aren't working, why would you still be spending money on them as a business? Okay. So the analysis of wastage is a really, really big thing when it comes to checking the health of your business. Next up, we have performance reviews. Okay. These are going to be done for everyone. So you might be a sole proprietor right now of your digital agency. You're the only person working in it, or you might have a team. If you're fortunate enough to have people working around you and with you, then you might want to do performance review for them as well. But any strong digital agency leader will conduct a full review of themselves as well as their team members, okay? Because everybody has to be achieving to a certain standard. Now, you'll have heard the phrase before, I'm sure, is a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, okay? So we need to make sure that you as the leader of the business and them as members of the business are achieving 100%. We're setting objectives for each other. We're giving ourselves deadlines, we're taking guidance where needed, and we're hitting those objectives, okay? Now, we are going to talk about objectives in a third and final topic of today's presentation, okay? But performance reviews are absolutely crucial, and they're something that should be done during the quarterly review. 3 months is enough time to get a good read on someone's ability, behavior, work ethic, and it's also enough time for them to make an improvement if they need to make one. So if in quarter one, you say to one of your team members, okay, look, I'm going to need you to conduct more sales meetings because we need more sales for the business, then they have 3 months to complete that objective. So it's a great amount of time to allow everybody the time and the ability to do what they need to do, okay? Now, what you also do is we need to look retrospectively and look at hindsight here, okay? We need to assess the completion of the objectives that we look to set out, okay? So let's say 3 months ago, or even a year ago, we said to ourselves, okay, we're going to have this much money at the end of the year. We're going to have this many team members. We're going to have this office. We're going to have this many clients. We're going to do this much work. Okay. These are our objectives. Okay. So if we're not checking that we've completed those objectives, then we couldn't realistically allow ourselves to set new ones. Okay. So included in the quarterly review will mean, do we stay on track to try and complete the current objectives that we have laid out, or do we set new ones because we completed the old ones? Okay, so it can be counterproductive either way, whether we just drop the old ones that haven't been done yet and we set new ones, or whether we continue working on ones that have already been done, then again, we're just wasting time. Okay, so that's something that needs to be included. The next thing we'll do is set fresh objectives, okay? This is something that has to be done to keep the business moving forward. I'm not going to touch on this too much right now because we're going to talk about this later on in the webinar. And the final thing that you need to do as a business, as a leader, and as a team is decide which issues you're going to overcome before the next quarter, okay? So every single business will have an issues list, or it can be referred to as a snag list, or just something that you don't particularly like. And this is something that could have been sitting in the back of your mind that you're just like, oh, I want to deal with that. I just don't know when I'm going to get the time. I don't necessarily know how to even begin dealing with it, okay? Now, some issues might be huge and some issues might be absolutely tiny, but even those tiny ones, I know it'll be sitting in the back of your mind and you'll want to get them dealt with, okay? So what you'll do is you'll have a written list of issues and then you can prioritize them in order of importance. So when you've done this, you can then allow yourself to set, you don't try and conquer them all, because to get 3 done well would be better than getting 12 half done or barely done, okay? So we want to make sure that we're just focusing on a few at a time and we're knocking them off every quarter, okay? Business is a steady, consistent, progressive element, okay? It's not something that can be just flicked with a switch and it's all done overnight. It has to be progressed continually, okay? So do not overwhelm yourself trying to get all of these issues done in one day. Just make sure that you're picking a few that are important to you and important to the business and that you're carrying these through into the next quarter as completed, okay? Now, hopefully all of that made sense. If it didn't, please feel free to ask me any questions you have on the content. I will get to them at the end with that Q&A session, okay? Now, hopefully also you were able to take some notes because that is going to be invaluable information when it comes to running your quarterly reviews as a business. Okay, so the next thing we're going to discuss is monitoring the health of your client base. Okay, now I have 3 very important things to talk to you about here. Okay, and we're going to cover a little bit on each. The first one, okay, the first area in which you can monitor the health of your client base is continually measuring the success of your client work. Okay, now you'll see in italics below here that we've written, are you meeting the objectives agreed with the client? Okay, because the first key to maintaining a long and stable client base is making sure that you're achieving, is that you're hitting the objectives that they have asked you to do, okay? So there'll be regular meetings with your clients, there would have been initial meetings, there would have been a proposal document, there would have been all these things that you have agreed to get done and you have agreed with the client and say, yep, we can absolutely do that for you, okay? Now, one of the biggest things in my personal experience and from experience of that of my clients and other digital agencies, okay, the biggest thing that can upset clients and disrupt your personal cash flow as a result is agencies not hitting the objectives that they set out, okay? And often this is a very important lesson or a very important rule when you're beginning a working relationship with a new client. You want to under-promise and over-deliver, okay? Be realistic and over-deliver on their expectations. If you over-promise and under-deliver, that's when you're going to see problems in your business, okay? We don't want to run the risk of upsetting a client, period. But if we're upsetting them because we're not hitting these unrealistic objectives that we've overpromised and sort of set ourselves up for failure, essentially, okay, this is not going to bode well. So whilst it may seem appealing in the offset to promise your client the world and say, yep, we'll do this, we'll do that, my absolute benevolent advice to you, do not do it, okay? That's from me to you. Make sure that whatever you're promising your client, you can absolutely achieve. So when we're talking about monitoring the health of your client base, you have to get off with them on the right foot, okay? So measure the success constantly. Are we hitting the objectives that we agreed with our client, okay? Now, that's not a maybe question. That's a yes or no. It's very black and white. There'll be certain parameters you need to achieve, and if you're not achieving them, there's a problem, okay? Now, second thing that we need to do on behalf of our clients, and this is a proactive system here, okay? We need to assess if the client is receiving maximum return on investment, okay? Now, if a client of any walk, any service, any industry decides to work with you, they're paying your fees, and that is an investment for their business. They should always be getting something in return when they're investing their business income, their business earnings with you, okay? So that is one investment that they're doing. The second investment that they're doing is whatever you're asking them to pay for. So we, as digital marketing specialists, as digital agency owners, we have advice and opinions on what the best types of ways to spend money would be for our clients, okay? So we might say, I really suggest that you do this paid advertising campaign on Google, or I suggest that you do this paid advertising campaign on Facebook, or I suggest that you do some YouTube advertising, or I would suggest that you invest heavily in a very good CRM to manage your client base, okay? Whatever you suggest that they do is an investment on their part. Now, what you must also do, and this is going up over and above as not only a digital agency, but as a personal marketing consultant to your clients, okay? Because you are an expert and you must trust your own ability. But what you must also do, and this will make your clients very happy, if you're proactively making suggestions on how they can make more money, how they can get more clients for themselves, or how they can sell more products, okay? It's up to us as their marketing specialists to make sure that they are exercising every potential earning opportunity that they have. So if you truly believe that they could have a better return on investment via Facebook than via Google, or that they might hit 2 different platforms and then, potentially double their sales, triple their sales, quadruple their sales. If you know that this is possible, but you're not sharing this information with your client, then you are not hitting the objectives. You should also have your personal objectives as well. How can I deliver for my client? How can I overperform for my client to make sure that they are undeniably satisfied with my service, okay? So if you're not only hitting the agreed objectives, you're also going above and beyond and suggesting other ways that they can make more money, okay, which could, of course, result in your business profiting additionally as well. But the main goal here is taking care of the client, making sure that you're hitting the objectives and that you're earning them in every way possible, okay? You're earning them maximum return on investment, all right? Now, third and final thing here, okay? We must allow time to have a lengthier meeting with our client once in a while, okay? Now, I understand that for those of you that currently run digital agencies, for those of you that have been in the industry for a long time, you will understand that some clients love to talk, other clients don't like to talk so much, okay? So if your client is absolutely adamant that they don't want to meet, which is very, very rare, okay, but if they're absolutely adamant that they don't want these longer meetings, then try not to worry too much about that and try and process the information in a different way, okay? But the salient point here is that often we'll just have a quick check-in with our clients. We'll give them a quick phone call, or we'll sit on a meeting with them for 20 minutes, or we'll send them a report, okay, and have an email back and forth. Now, what I would encourage you to do is allow yourself the time and allow the client the time to sit and speak with you and have a longer meeting. How are things? How is your business? How are you feeling? Is this affordable for you? Would you like to spend more money? Would you like to spend less money? Like, what's going on with you? Okay. Now, this is something that will not only protect the long-term life of your client relationship, it'll also help you build rapport with the client. Okay. Because if you have rapport with the client, you're allowing them this extra time, you could look for upsell opportunities. They will trust you more. They will allow you to experiment and trial new ideas. So, of course, if we're looking at point number 2 here on the screen and we're looking at maximum ROI, and if you're going to make a suggestion like that, to be trusted, you must also have the respect and credibility from the client, okay? So allow yourself time to have a longer meeting as opposed to just a little catch up, just to say, how are things? Allow yourself the time to have a proper debrief and a catch up in one, okay? So moving on to the third and final segment of today's webinar. Once again, if you did have any questions on topic number 2 there, feel free to fire them over and we will certainly get to them at the end in today's Q&A session, okay? So third and final point we have for today, setting objectives to compound on success, okay? Now, as we discussed, success is defined differently by everybody who runs a digital agency and everybody who runs a business, and even in life, we all have certain goals, okay? So you might say to yourself, well, if I hit this, then I'll be happy. If I buy this house, then I'll feel like I'm a success. If I buy this car, then I'll feel like I'm a success. If I achieve this social status, then I will feel like a success, okay? Now, of course, this is defined differently by everyone, and you will define this in your own way, okay? What I want to show you is not only just getting to that point of success, I want to show you how to continually compound on that success, okay? So that's what we're going to cover. Now, first thing that you can do is you can set objectives on a regular basis. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because in any walk of business, we must avoid complacency. It's all too easy to become too comfortable and almost too happy, should we say, with the position that we're in, okay? Now, this is really up to you. Do you want to grow, or are you going to stay where you are, okay? Because complacency essentially means that we stay where we are. Now, with the other term, the more negative impacts of complacency can mean that we're actually reducing, okay? Because we're becoming complacent, we're not running fresh lead generation, we're not analyzing the market, we're not tracking our data. We could then actually begin to lose clients and therefore lose money, okay? So if we're looking at reducing complacency, we need to make sure that we're setting ourselves continual objectives. That's the first note I have for you, okay? The second one, I would like you to set annual objectives at the beginning of each financial year, okay? So your financial year would either be like we discussed earlier on in the webinar, it could be January through to December, or it could be differently. If you incorporated your business in, say, May, it could run from May to May, but it's almost always in a 12-month period, okay? That's pretty conclusive. So with this theory, with this logic, okay, we're setting ourselves annual objectives. Now they can be financial, personal, progressional. We can say we want the business to be in a certain place. We want to have, 50% less issues at the end of the year than we do at the start of the year. We want to hire 3 new additional team members in sales, marketing, and operations. Okay, the goals and objectives of every business are going to be different. So you shouldn't compare yourself to anyone else, but you should take the guidance and advice from resources and advice from areas that you can trust, from resources that you can trust, okay? And make sure that you're getting yourself on the right direction and you yourself are formulating the best plan for your growth, okay? Third thing, make sure that you're setting objectives every quarter, okay? These are smaller objectives. Your annual objective will be maybe between 2 and 3 big things. Okay, we want to increase our income by 1.5. We want to hire 3 new team members and we want to move into these bigger offices, okay? That's an annual objective. So we say in 12 months time, this is where we want to be. Now, of course, in order to get to the annual objective, we need to break it down into smaller quarterly objectives, okay? So in order to increase more money, well, what are you going to do in quarter 1 to make that happen? Are you going to increase your advertising spend? Are you going to have more sales calls? Are you going to reduce wastage, okay? How are you going to increase your net profit, okay, in order to afford the things that you need? So quarterly objectives look a bit more like this, okay? We're going to do smaller things to work towards the bigger goal, okay? And this can be almost anything that will drive yourself towards the large annual objective, okay? Now, these objectives then should be broken down into achievable tasks, okay? So let's just say that the annual objective, I want to double the business turnover by the end of next year, okay? Fantastic. So the quarterly objective is then, we need to make sure that we're earning 0.25%, essentially 0.25 more money, right? So a quarter or increase by whatever we're doing. So if we're running it over 4 quarters of the year and we want to double it at the end of the year, we need to make sure that we're compounding 25% on each quarter to make sure that eventually, we're going to earn double the turnover by next year. Or, you can work out your own maths on this one. So essentially that's going to be a smaller objective. Now, to go even smaller into these bite-sized chunks, okay, the achievable tasks, we need to make sure that we're putting in little tiny pieces of advice and guidance to ourselves and our team, okay? So if we want to add 25% onto our turnover, okay, then what are we going to do? Okay, now just a side note on this, essentially what this is your pace, okay? Now, it's not necessarily likely that you would double your actual overall income by the end of the year, but if you're on track or on pace to earn £100,000 a year, okay, because of your monthly income in year 1, by the end of year 2, it's realistic to think that by the end of year 2, you could be on pace to earn 200,000 because of your monthly income. Okay, so that's the way it would work. It won't necessarily mean that net in the bank you will have 200,000, but your pace essentially means that if it were to stay as it were, would you earn 200,000 pounds in the next 12 months? Okay, so now that we've run over what that means, these objectives should be broken down into achievable tasks. So if you want to earn more money, specifically, what does that mean? Okay, we're going to spend an extra £300 a month on advertising. Are we going to get one of our marketing people additional support, additional education? Are we going to put them through this course on Google Ads so that we can then pull the trigger on that? Okay, what does that mean in particular? Do we need them to work an extra 2 hours for the next 4 weeks to make this happen? Okay, as you see, the one giant annual objective gets broken down into asking a staff member to stay late that night. Okay, and that's a tiny objective. So we must always make sure that we're not just committing to ourselves and promising ourselves these big things, but we're not actually putting down a plan to make it happen. Okay, now each quarter you should review your adherence to the regular actions that were set out to achieve the objectives outlined. Okay, so in order to achieve any objective, we must make sure that we're putting in regular actions. Okay, whether it's training, whether it's development, whether it's outsourcing something, whether it's spending a certain amount of time to do these Google ads or Facebook ads, or blog writing or content creation or social media posting. Okay, review your adherence to the actions set out to achieve your objectives. Okay, because if you're not adhering to the actions, there's a very good chance you're not going to hit the end objective. Okay, so to recap on today's session, number 1, adhere to your quarterly reviews. Every 3 months, make sure that you're sitting down with yourself or your team to make these happen. Number 2, be aware of your client base health. It's very important that as we build and compound on our client base, that we're also taking care of them. Third and finally, set continual objectives and avoid complacency. Okay, complacency doesn't only mean standing still, it can also mean going backwards. Okay, so that being said, it's always a pleasure to present these presentations to you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope the content was valuable. What we're going to do now is move on to the Q&A session. If you would like to have a look at us at iOB Business, you can head over to iob-business.com. Okay, so let me just go and pull up the questions that I have from today's session. Okay, one moment. I'm just going to grab these now. Okay, perfect. So I have had a question in. Okay, this is when we're talking about objectives here. So this one says, I'm not sure where to begin with my objective setting. Okay, so fantastic question. Very, very valid point. Now, what I would suggest that you do is review your current business. All right, what's important to you right now? What's important to your business right now? Do you need more money? Do you need to cut expenditure? Are you spending too much money? Do you have high levels of wastage? And do you need more clients? Do you need one bigger client to give you a boost? Okay, what is it that you need? So do a quarterly review on your business. Okay, just like we talked about in this presentation, conduct this kind of review and run through exactly what your business needs. Start there. So set an annual objective, a quarterly objective, and then set that down into bite-sized chunks. Okay, fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking. Okay, brilliant. And another very good question here, still on the topic of quarterly reviews. Okay, so if it's just me in the agency, should I still conduct quarterly reviews? Okay, so these one-person bands, the people that run the agencies on their own, okay, this is you. I absolutely make sure that you are still conducting these quarterly reviews, because you can still do everything else that we discussed. The only thing you won't be able to do, of course, is conduct reviews of your team members if there aren't any. But everything else you can still do. You can still analyze your turnover. You can analyze your wastage. You can set yourselves objectives. You can make sure that you're progressing with the business to eventually even set yourself the goal of hiring someone to work with you if that's what you want to do. Okay, so even if it's not, if it's just you in the agency, you must make sure that you're still putting time aside to focus on these quarterly reviews. But another fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking. And I'm just going to double check if we have any more questions on today's session. All righty, perfect. So I think that is us. We have answered all of the questions. And as always, I hope that you have a wonderful week. It's been a real pleasure presenting this to you, and I very much look forward to speaking with you again a couple of weeks from now. Take care.